Hey guys, welcome to a new executable items tutorial. In this case, I will be explaining how to add damage to your tools. First, let's get the item. Let's create the item, iron sword. And how to add damage. We have two ways. The first one is using attributes and the second one is using activators. The first one is worse than the second because we can't modify a lot of things, but I will explain it anyway. So let's create the attribute. It will be generic attack damage. Normally it is in 0, let's say 11 of damage. Save, back, save. Now when I give myself the item, it does 11 attack damage. Let's test. As you can see, when I am hitting the zombie, it does my base damage, that is 1 with the hand, plus the 11 attack damage. So it is working. But as I already said, we can't customize this a lot. Like it is just this damage and nothing more with it. Let's go into the second way. First of all, let's delete the attribute. Back, save, and now let's create an activator. It will be player hit entity. Now on entity commands, let's use the command damage and amount. We can take a look how it works clicking this. It has a lot of things you could add. I will just use the simple one, damage 5 for example. Finish, save, back, save. Let's give ourselves the item. It normally does 6. If I click, you could see that it is 6 and a 5. 6, 5, 6, 5. The 6 because of the iron sword and the 5 because of the damage command. Remember, we added here damage 5. So we added the damage using attributes and using activator. Let's complex this a little bit. Let's say we would like this damage additional to only applied sometimes. That means the activator will work randomly. To do it, we will need placeholder API, PAPI, and the expansion of random number generator. To download it, you have to do PAPI upload, download, and RNG. Once download, reload it, and now we have it. Let's first take a look how that placeholder works. PAPI, parse, Vayk, and RNG. As you can see, it needs one value and another value. The placeholder will return a number between these two values, for example 1 and 10, and it prints 8, 7, 7, 6, 6, 7, 3, 4 random numbers. Okay? So with this idea, we will make the activator to work only sometimes. Let's go to the item, activator, and let's add a placeholder conditions. It will be player number, the part 1, the placeholder we already created. It must be equals to 1. And that's it. Let's save, back, and save. What we just did. We created an activator that works when hitting the entity, and it applies additionally 5 of damage. But it has a condition. It will only work when the random number generator, this one, will be the same as 1. That means we have 10 possibilities and the activator will only work when that placeholder returns one of that possibilities. That means the activator will only work 10% of the times. Okay, let's test. 6, this didn't work, didn't work, didn't work. And as you could see, there was 5 of damage and a 6 of damage. That's it. Now the activator is only working 10% of the times and it is applying an additional damage. It works like a critical. You could also add particles to make it more epic visually. Now let's do another thing. Hey guys, While editing the video, I think of another example that maybe will be useful for you, and is randomizing the amount of damage. Let's go to the item we created. I will delete the activator and create it again. Hit entity. And normally you would add damage and an amount, for example 5. That is why I already show you how it works. 6 and 5, 6 and 5. Nice, it's normal. Now, how could you randomize that 5? Look. First, I will cancel the event of this activator. So I will only apply the 5 damage. Now the 6 is not being applied. Now I am only applying the 5 damage that I added in entity commands. And the event of hitting the entity is setting cancelled because I set it. Now, it is making 5 damage always. Let's randomize it. How can we? Let's go here. Instead of damage 5, we can use placeholders here. So, in the same way I talked to you guys how to randomize activators, you can randomize the damage using RNG, and let's randomize it between 4 and 8. Finish, save, back, save, and now it applies 6.9, 4, 6, 4, 4, 6.9, 5, 6.9, etc. Now the damage is randomized. And that's it. That is what I wanted to show you guys. Keep in mind that RNG placeholder also supports placeholders in it, or you can use damage and math placeholders and works with the value of variables or work with anything you would like to. Let's continue the video. Hey, it's me again. While editing the video that I thought of while editing the video, I got another idea, that is applying effects to the entity or to the target. Let's go to our item, let's delete the activator we have. Now let's add a hit entity, and on entity commands we can add effect give and target the entity using entity UUID. Poison? No, poison regains health to zombie. So I will just apply slowness. 10. Finish, save, and give ourselves the item, and when hitting, you can see that the zombie now has some particles. Okay? That is how it works with mobs. Let's say this activator is player hit player. Instead of using entity UID, you will need to use target. Okay? In this case I am playing alone, so I don't have anyone to test with, but this will work. Also, another tip, if you are working with applying damage or applying stuff in area, for example move around 4, burn 5, and you would also like to apply effects, you will need this command, move around 4 effect give, and this placeholder you can check it in the wiki so you can read more about this, but it is around target to players. In this case I am using move around, so I am not targeting players, I am targeting mobs. So instead of around target, it would be around target UUID, slowness 10. Added, finish, save, and now when I hit the zombie, it applies the slowness to the zombie because of the first command, effect give entity UUID. But we also have move around 4 and effect slowness. So if we have some zombies right here, and I do this, every zombie got slowness too. Okay? So that is how you can add effect to the zombie or to the mob itself and the mobs around. Again, if you are working instead of player hit entity, you are working with player hit player instead of entity juju ID, it would be target. And instead of around target juju ID, you will need to use the around command for effect give around target without the juju ID part. Juju ID is for mobs. Okay, and that's it. Let's continue the video now. We will delete this activator, we will create it again, and we want now that the damage command will only work, for example, when hitting creepers. Okay? Right now, if we use it, it will work 6 and 5. But it works on zombie. How to make it only work on creepers? Let's go to the activator and detailed entities. Let's add creeper. Finish, save, back and save. And now when I hit the zombie, it only says 6, 6, 6. But if I hit a creeper, 6 and 5. 6 and 5. So now you could add in the loader, for example, the sword is the creeper killer. It applies 5 damage more to creepers. Okay? Keep in mind that the tiled entities, for example Creeper, also supports mythic mobs, supports blacklisting mobs. For example, this Diamond Sword applies 10 damage more to all mobs except Endermans, Endermite and Ghosts, for example. Now let's add more commands to this sword. Let's delete the activator, let's create it again. Hit entity, damage 5, and here damage 5 we can also apply more commands. For example, we can add the command burn and time in seconds. For example, 4. Finish, save, back, save. Now let's test, and when hitting the mob it will burn in fire. Keep in mind that this sword doesn't have fire aspect, so you could again make a sword that has an activator that applies fire and more damage to specific entities, and it only works sometimes because of the conditions of random number. Okay, like you're getting the idea. I am explaining you ways to achieve things and you could combine everything. Okay, now we are applying damage to only one mob. Let's make this sword to apply damage in area. Let's go to the activator, and instead of damage 5 and burn 4, we're going to make this in area. How? Using the move around command. Since we don't know the parameters of this command, let's check it. Here we have move around. Let's click and move around, distance and your commands. Move around 4 and damage 5. Okay? Finish. Keep in mind that this is in entity command, so the around, the area that it will work will be applied from the entity. If you add this in player commands, the area will be applied from yourself. Okay? So let's test. Save, back and save. And now if we hit this entity, it only applies 6. But if we have a creeper right here, the 5 will be applied to this mob. If you would like, it is not close. And now, nice. What if you would like that 5 damage additional will be applied also in this zombie, in the entity that is being hit? You have to add move around and damage 5. Like you have to apply, like you have the command to apply damage around, and you have the command to apply damage to the mob itself. Okay? And we can do the same that we did with burn. move around for born 4, and the born 4 for the entity itself, and the move around for the entities around the mob itself. Okay, so let's finish, save, back, save. Let's play some creepers here, and it works perfectly. Okay, we can also add particles to it to make it look smooth. Here we have particle command, type, quantity, offset, speed. You can check all these parameters and what stuff feel on it in the wiki that I will leave in the description below. So in this case, flame, quantity 40, offset 2, speed 0.1. Finish, save, and now there are also some flames. And that's it. That's the way that we can add more damage to our tools. Also, I show you some mechanics that you can use with it, and a couple of things to say more. The damage is working only for entities. If you want them to work with players too, create an activator, player hit player, and add all your stuff in the target commands. Keep in mind that instead of using move around, you will need to use the around command, because around is for players and move around is for mobs. Okay, that's it. With this information you can add damage to any tool you would want. The only exception will be the bow, that I will show you how to right now. Let's create another item, bow, create more damage bow. In this case, we don't have the option of attributes. The only way to add damage to it would be using the power enchantment. But we will use another way. Let's go to activators, new. Instead of using player hit entity, we will use projectile hit entity. Okay? And it's the same idea. You can add the commands here, detailed entities, placeholders, and a lot of stuff you can do right here. So in this case, let's make damage 5, move around 4, damage 5, burn 5, and move around 4, burn 5. Finish, save. Let's give ourselves the bow, and let's summon some creepers. And it worked perfect. When the projectile hits the entity, it applies damage to a round, and it burns also. And that's it. To apply more damage to players, it's the same idea. Instead of hit entity, you would need to use hit player. I hope now you know how to add more damage to your swords. Keep in mind that you have a lot of mechanics to apply to the item, like make the damage to work only by certain conditions, by random conditions, then apply damage, apply burn, apply particles, make an explosion, make the mobs to dodge, make the mobs to jump to the air. And by the way, we don't only have entity commands, we also have player commands. So when, for example, making more damage, you receive a speed as well. Or another idea, an item that regains health to you. Use an item, create an activator, player hits entity, then in player commands use regain health command, and each time you hit an entity you will regain some health. To make it work only sometimes, for example, this sword has 2% of regaining half of health. That's part of percent of working sometimes, is the same idea we just applied here. Work with random number generators. To get that 2%, you will need to use the RNG between 1 and 100, and the placeholder to only work when the print number is less or equals than 2. That means the only possibilities are 1 and 2. That means 2 possibilities over 100 possibilities. 2 possibilities over 100 means 2%. Okay? That's all. I hope you like it. I will be making some videos explaining features like this. If you want a feature to be explained or a method or an item specifically anything, feel free to ask it in the Discord or in the comment section below. Now make your items and see you.